for long-term benefit for future generations of Albertans. And the second part of it was, what controls would you put in place to protect this revenue from being pilfered for short-term political benefit? Everybody understand the question? Okay, we're going to let Eric have first run at that. Do you want a first run at it, or do you want to answer it?
Well, I'll answer it, but not first.
Not first, okay, all right. Stuart, do you want to go first or go second?
Well, I always prefer to go last, but you're standing in the corner.
There we go.
Snake on the floor here.
Premier Lougheed had a good idea with the Heritage Savings Trust Fund when he set it up in the 70s. And the idea was to save money for future generations of non-renewable resources. And that idea carried through fairly well until Ralph Klein turned the government over to Robin Campbell and Premier Stelmach. That's when the value in the Heritage, we had an $8 billion surplus there, that's when the value in the Heritage Savings Trust Fund started to decline. The first year that these guys got in power, they increased spending by 20.4%, and it went downhill from there till now we're in an annual deficit that's going to take us to $31 billion. I know it's not comparable completely, but Norway started up their Heritage Savings Trust Fund equivalent in the 1990s. Now it's worth over $1 trillion. Alaska has one. And ours is worth just about what it was the year we started up, because they've been siphoning off the interest year after year and spending the interest. And that's your children's future that they're spending. The Wildrose plan is to take 50% of the savings once we balance the budget, and 50% of the surplus, and put that towards the Heritage Savings Fund, and to get it built up to about $200 billion in, I forget the time frame, 10 or 20 years. Thanks.
Thank you. Rob, do you want to have a go at that one?
Sure.
Well, when Premier Prentice ran to become leader of our party, he had a vision and he had a plan to get our fiscal house in order. My two partners here in the opposition might as well take fairy dust and sprinkle it over a piece of paper, and that's where they get their numbers. The Wildrose have $9 billion in unfunded promises. But yet, and then they also have $20 billion of where they're going to get the money to build the infrastructure they talk about. Whether it's 5 years or 6 years, doesn't matter. They have to come up with $20 billion. The NDs, well, you know, they're going to be putting us about $10 billion in debt. My plan is right here. It's called Budget 2015. And I'd ask you all to read it before you vote. This is a 10-year plan for the province of Alberta. This shows us getting off of oil and gas and using it in our operating budget. And the reason that's important is because people have said we have to get out of the boom and bust cycle that we're in. We're tired of it. We can't continue to go through this. So we put a plan together that will get us off of oil and gas in our operating budget. What we will do with that money is we'll put it into the Heritage Savings Trust Fund, and we'll put it into paying down the infrastructure, and we'll use it for any other new infrastructure we need. But our operating budget will be balanced, and we won't need oil to pay for it, which means that our funding will be stable in good times and in bad times. In good times, when royalties go up, it means we have more money to put into our savings. If things are bad, as they are right now, we don't have to cut any programming. So I ask you to look at this. This is on paper, and this is to be voted on in the legislature when we get back after the election. These folks are making all kinds of promises. I have made no promises this election. All I've said to you that we'll do the best job we can, to have a long-term plan, and continue to work with the constituents in this riding. So I ask you to look at Fiscal Plan 2015 and compare it to the promises that my two friends here next to me have made.
Thank you. Okay, last kick of the cat.
Well, that's interesting. He keeps referring to the plan, and I'm sure that the majority of Albertans will find that they're not in support of the plan, because why would the Premier himself not even be mentioning it in the later stages of this campaign? Obviously there's something wrong with it. He's not saying anything about it. The thing is, why is it that the PCs are bound to determine to tax the middle income and low income families to pay for their mistakes? And basically that's what it is. Because they didn't collect enough royalties to begin with. And now they're making us pay extra, because I'm in that category too. They're making us pay more for their mistakes. They've squandered the wealth. Well, where did it go? Well, it's not too hard to figure out when you look at what's going on here in this province. It's not hard to figure out at all. And Andy's position is that, okay, yeah, everybody hates to pay tax. I totally agree. I hate to pay all the time too, but I'm tired of it. And I think the corporations need to pay a little bit more, just another 2%. And same thing the wealthy. Increase, is get away from this flat tax so that the wealthy can pay a little bit more. And then we'll have the money that we can provide for our services to our education, to the seniors, and our health care. Our health care is a mess. So we're going to need the funding to do these things. And the only way we can see it is that we do that. And we're going to balance the budget by 2018. We feel that we can do this with this plan. Our plan, not theirs.
Thank you. We're getting down, I guess you're a preacher of that, but
We done the final 10 questions?
yeah, we're down to basically 3. This one here has been addressed to Robin Campbell. It says, how do you envision the decrease in the health and education budget not affecting services?
Well, again, when you look at the health budget and you look at the education budget, we've done two things. We're looking at efficiencies and we're reducing our administration costs. So the Premier has made a commitment, and it's in our plan, and it's in the budget numbers. We are not going to touch frontline workers. I said earlier that we are honoring the contract with teachers. We're not laying any teachers off in Alberta. We're not laying any nurses off in Alberta. We're not laying any occupational therapists or physiotherapists or surgeons in Alberta. But what we are looking at doing is looking at efficiencies, making sure that our administration costs are in line, and we think we can run the government by making sure that we look after those efficiencies. So we will continue to do that. You know, when you look at the health levy, we're going to raise about $480 million, and that'll go into healthcare. You know, if we didn't have that levy, we'd have to find another $480 million. You know, and going across the province, and talking to people, nobody wants their taxes raised, and I appreciate it. I don't want my taxes raised either. I work hard for my money just like you do. But everybody wants their programming. So we have to find a balance. And that's what we did in this budget. We found a balance. We make sure that we look after our core services in healthcare, in education, in human services, and looking after our seniors and most vulnerable. That's all in here. The money's there to do that. So you will be looked after. And I just want to make a quick comment about healthcare as we're talking about it. We have a good healthcare system in this province. Can be better? Sure it can. We can improve on everything. But you know what? I'm here today because of our healthcare program, our healthcare service. I was sick. And if it wasn't for the doctors and the nurses and the healthcare system, I probably wouldn't be sitting up here today talking to you as I am right now. And all of you probably have been involved in the system at one time or another. Our healthcare professionals do great work, and we have a great system. We'll continue to work to improve it. But I get a little tired when the opposition keeps saying that our healthcare system's in a mess and that we don't do a good job of it. We're going to have a Class A hospital here, and that's going to be the renal dialysis unit. The bus will still go to Hinton.
Thank you.
We get to answer that, or?
It was addressed to Robin only, so,
Yeah, we got comments on
You have some comments?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll give you a chance to answer them.
It's fantastic.
No, like I mentioned before, Wildrose Party would work to make the government more efficient and redirect the resources to frontline workers. And recognize that I joined the Wildrose party because of a hip replacement. It took an incredible long time for me to get my hip fixed. But the care I got in the system was just fantastic. It was good. It's not the frontline workers, it's the system that they have to work in, and that's related to the leadership that we're providing. We need a change of leadership. With respect to pixie dust, please. You know, this man, 120 schools, and they built one. 140 family care clinics, and they built one. Edson Hospital promised in 2005. It's made it through 4 election cycles as a promise. Boy, you know, that brings back the story of Charlie Brown and Lucy, where Lucy holds the football for Charlie Brown and he just pulls it away. The election promise gets pulled away just after the election. You know, Charlie Brown's backside is getting really sore and bruised here. Whitecourt Hospital, 1996, and not built, and these guys follow promises. Thanks.
Do you have 2 cents worth?
Well, he talks about new schools and that kind of thing. What are we going to have for teachers? We got 12,000 students entering the education system this fall. Are they hiring any new students or new teachers? No, they're not going to do that. Look at our health care. The Prentice budget will take $1 billion out of the frontline health and hospital services. Cutbacks that will mean more crowded emergency rooms, more canceled surgeries, longer wait lists, and more hallway medicine. That's their plan for next year. $1 billion cut. And then you say, well, it's not going to affect frontline services or workers. Well, I disagree with them. Because the workers are told that if they leave or if they retire or whatever, there's not going to be any new ones hired. So is that not going to affect health care? You bet it is. And it's all throughout the whole list of it. I know lots of workers. I deal with them all the time as a labor council. I hear their arguments and hear their discussions. So this is happening. There's no question about it. It's in their plan, not the NDP plan.
Thank you. When I was at the back of the room earlier before the meeting started, there were 3 students and they were busy writing out a question. And I said to them, well, you know, you don't get an opportunity to vote in this election, but they said, well, we're doing a project at school. So 3 of the questions that they put together have already been answered, and if there's any question about that, you can review the questions that are in the basket. That was my decision to make, that they have been answered several times by these 3. But this one here, I think, is important and might give you a bit of a giggle. It says, this is addressed to all of the candidates, it says, what do you think is your main job as an MLA? Out of the mouths of children.
Our main job is to represent you. That's our main job. Look out after your interests, not the interest of some huge corporation somewhere. That's the NDP's position. We look after Alberta families. Like I said in my opening remarks, we cover students, we cover seniors, we look after all those issues. We cover education, health and safety, we cover all those things that are important to Alberta families so that they can succeed. And we're looking after students, and as a matter of thing for students, like I said, I mentioned the STEP program. We also, in our plan, we're saying that we want to raise the minimum wage by 2018 to $18 an hour or $15 an hour. And that is important for our students, to earn a fair living wage so you can actually live on it. And that is important. But yeah, the bottom line here, we're here to represent you. Listen to what your concerns are and act on them. That's the important thing is, we're here representing you.
Stuart?
I'd like to do the job the way I do my work on Hinton Town Council, and that sort of echoes what Eric said, and that is to be a connected part of the community, go out and listen to the problems, and to work on the tough problems and bring those back to the legislature. And not be afraid to stand up for the community on particular issues. Now, the Wildrose Party is better able to do this because of our free vote system in the legislature. And that means that we can work across partisan lines, if you think about it, on issues in Edson, and maybe another community has the issue, and work with somebody even if they're in a different party. And we're looking for the best ideas and bring those forward. So that's my answer.
Well, I don't think I can add much than what the other two candidates said. Our job is to represent the riding. And we work with everybody. We work with industry. We work with town councils and school boards. We work with the churches. We work with nonprofit societies. We provide a broad range of services for people, anywhere from compensation claims. People have issues with compensation claims. We deal with maintenance issues, children's services, you name it, it comes through our office. And so it's our job as MLA to do what we can and help people actually get through the system. Because unfortunately, sometimes the system can be very complicated. And I know, and for a layperson, they can be very frustrated. And so our job as MLA and through my office in Hinton is to help constituents, sort of get through the system and do what we can to help them moving forward. And then as an MLA, of course, you're involved, if you're on the government side, you're involved in caucus in setting government policy. And that looks at the policies right across the province. Of course, you're always looking at how that policy is going to affect your riding and the constituents within your riding. But your main goal is also as an MLA is to be accessible. So you can never forget where you come from, and you can never forget who actually puts you in your job. And I know that in the 7 years that I've been in office, and I've seen some MLAs forget that. So it's very important to remember where you come from.
Thank you. I have a question of the person who wrote this original memo or question here. Why is this not an open forum? I hope that you can answer that to yourself and say that it has been. And if it hasn't been, I want you to come up and talk to me after. We now come to that point of the evening when it is moving on, and I think you've had an opportunity of hearing these gentlemen on various topics, but we're now going to give them 3 minutes in which to summate and make their closing comments. The bell will ring at 2.5 minutes to let them know that they can terminate as quickly as possible. And we're going to use the first speaking order that we did when we first started, and that was with Eric. You have 3 minutes to close.
Thank you. Well, after 44 years, we're saying it's time for a change. It's time for a leader who fights for what matters to Alberta families. It's time for a leader who stands up for working and middle-class families. Only Rachel Notley can stop Jim Prentice's PCs who want you to pay more to get less. This election, you can choose leadership for what matters. The PCs and the Wildrose want to cut family health care and education. The Wildrose also, according to the leader, stated that they're willing to allow people to go elsewhere to, say, get hip and knee surgeries done to lessen wait times. Is that not a push for two-tiered health care? PCs failed to earn Alberta's full fair value for their oil and gas by maintaining one of the world's lowest oil royalty rates anywhere, even when the prices were high. They squandered Alberta's natural resource wealth, failed to achieve greater value-added processing in Alberta, and have focused only on more export pipelines for unprocessed bitumen, sending our jobs down the pipeline to Texas. We can do better. As I mentioned earlier, our proportion of our overall economy, no province spends less than we do, at just over 10%. Yet what is the real culprit here? Irresponsible tax, royalty giveaways, paltry tax and corporate profits, flat tax giveaways to the wealthy, and penny on the dollar oil royalties make it impossible to pay for basic services or even save for the future. This province deserves a premium for everyone. We believe in investing in healthcare, education, seniors care, and creating jobs that Alberta families depend on. It matters. We have a practical plan to make our economy stronger by creating jobs through supporting our local companies and small businesses that employ most people in Alberta. We will create stable mortgage-paying jobs by making sure our resources are processed here at home instead of, like I said, shipping them to Texas. Our dollars don't have to be wasted on luxury golf courses while our hospitals crumble. They can be invested in our priorities like healthcare, education, seniors, and creating jobs. Challenged in all of this, Mr. Prentice is telling you and your family, look in the mirror, because in his view, his government bad choices are your fault. Alberta can do better. It's time for change. We need a government in Alberta that cares about jobs, that works to build a better economy that serves the need of you and your family. On May 5th, I'm asking for your support. Vote Eric Rosendahl, NDP.
Thank you very much, Eric. Stuart?
Start the clock now. I'm kidding. You all likely know that the only party in the legislature that's taken a firm stand against tax hikes and in opposition to Mr. Campbell's planned $31 billion debt is Wildrose. You might ask what we would do to help get this spending and debt under control. We'll eliminate 3,200 upper-level government positions. I mentioned the 1 in 5 manager-worker ratio, and some government departments even have one manager for every one worker. We'll end corporate welfare, period. We'll eliminate sole source contracts that have enriched so many of the friends of the PCs. We'll guarantee open bidding processes on all major contracts. None of us in this room would make major purchases without shopping, but Mr. Campbell's PC government does it all the time, $1 billion last year. We'll end March Madness, the bureaucratic spending spree that wastes millions of dollars when government agencies empty bank accounts at the end of the fiscal year, fearing their budgets will be trimmed. Wildrose will terminate the PC practice of politicized infrastructure spending. Never again will a PC party run around at election time saying, vote for me and I will build you a, you fill in the blank. By requiring full public disclosure of infrastructure priority lists, including costs and the reasons for the timing of each project, we can dramatically improve efficiency. The full 30% pay that PC ministers gave themselves will be rolled back. The full 8% pay that MLAs gave themselves will be rolled back. We'll ban MLAs from being elected under one party, then crossing to another without first facing a by-election. Healthcare is a mess. Wildrose will redirect savings from the extravagant AHS executive pay, perks and severance, and $1 million cell phone bills toward cutting waiting times. In education, Wildrose will ensure new school projects and modernizations are aligned with the priorities determined by school boards and not the minister. Further and importantly, the Wildrose Party will support local school boards in utilizing their own resources, including reserves. Your choice on May 5th couldn't be clearer. If you favor tax increases and bigger government, vote NDP. If you're okay with massive tax hikes and debt, and you want to vote for the finance minister who has masterminded and engineered the biggest tax increase in Alberta's history and the biggest annual deficits in Alberta's history, that's Mr. Campbell over here. Lastly, if you favor fiscal responsibility, balanced budgets, and staying away from debt, you want to mark your ballot in favor of the Wildrose Party. Thank you kindly.
Rob?
Well, as I said earlier in another forum, this is my job review. So the gentleman to the right of me can say what they like, and they can make all kinds of promises. I've spent 7 years as your MLA, and I love my job. I love this riding, I love this town. And I know that as your MLA, I've delivered on everything I said I would. I never went out and made a bunch of promises and said, you know, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. I've always worked with the communities, I've worked with our town councils, I've worked with our school boards, and I've delivered on what they've set their priorities to be. So the Dakin School isn't Robin Campbell's priority or the minister's priority, that was the school board's priority. The modernization in Grand Cache, again, was the school board's priority. The new high school in Jasper was the school board's priority. The Edson Hospital was the town of Edson and the town council lobbying the government that we need a new hospital. And in 2005, yes, the hospital was announced. But you know what? That was a modernization of a hospital. And after the plans were done and after they looked at it, they found out that it was too expensive to modernize and that they had to rebuild a new hospital. And my fellow back there, Ivan Strang, former MLA, did a great job in lobbying to get the new hospital built. I got to finish it. I got to be able to come in 2012 and say, yes, we're going there. And all we in Edson are watching it being built. And as I said earlier, I'm proud of it. But you know, when I look at, Canada, and I look at our province, we have the lowest taxes, and we'll continue to have the lowest taxes anywhere in Canada. We have the best programming and services anywhere in Canada, and we'll continue to have the best programming and services. We have the most transparent government anywhere in Canada. Anything that we talk about, any money that we spend, can all be seen publicly on the internet. You can go to each department you want, you can type in that department's name, and you'll see everything. You'll see what I had for lunch on a Friday 3 months ago, because my receipt's there. That's how transparent we are. We talk about wages. We do not make the money we did in 2008. I make less now than I did in 2008. So all this baloney about 30% increases and 8% increases is just not true. And I will sit down and I'll show the math to anybody about that. But you know what? It's not about that. This job is about who is going to serve you the best in the legislature. Who is going to advocate for your communities, and who's going to be able to stand up to the government or stand up to the cabinet and get the job done. And over the last 7 years, I went from chief government whip to government house leader to Aboriginal relations to ESRD to finance minister. I am the second most powerful person in government now, only behind the premier. And I want to continue to be your representative in the government. I want to continue to work with the residents of Edson and all of our riding to make sure that we have the best riding in Alberta and that you continue to be proud of me and me proud of you. Thank you very much, and I hope that on May 5th you vote for Robin Campbell again.
Thank you. Now you get an opportunity to listen to me. Well, we've come basically with the questions that have been answered and the comments that have been made by these three gentlemen. We recognize the amount of work that they're doing, and we've come to the end of the formal part of our evening, in as much as we've heard the speeches and we've heard the rebuttals and we've heard the comments. But I remind you that you stand in readiness to vote, to take an active part in the decisions that are made in the Alberta legislature. You probably didn't realize that before, but you do. What your concerns are and your issues that you were concerned about that will be considered on the floor of the legislature, you will have an opportunity of having input.